Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a couple people did ask hand history questions, and this one actually came privately via Facebook. And Liam prefaces the hand by saying, "Hi there, I was wondering if you could review a hand of my friend. His name is Patrick Clark, a very up-and-coming successful poker player who won the 2014 Irish Open this year, taking down a nice €250,000. Anyway, this hand is from WPT Nottingham, €500 buy-in. There's history between my friend and the other guy. He's from Ireland as well, and he played against him a few times, so they have an idea at how each other play. My friend thinks he played it well, but I'm not sure if he did or not, or if he could have done a different line of play, and was wondering what you thought about this hand." Okay, so at this point in the tournament, the blinds are 500, 1,000 with a $100 ante. It folds around to the cutoff, who opens for 2.5. Hero decides to call in the small blind, and not going to say too much about this. End up going heads up to it. Hero flops top pair, check, bet for 3.5, and Hero decides to check min raise. So I am going to preface this by saying that I am not an MTT specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm still going to give my opinions because this is still 50 big blind poker, and I still think there's a lot of important concepts in this hand. But if anyone is an MTT specialist and has any other thoughts, please make sure you let me know, because I'm always looking to improve my MTT thoughts, even though I don't play them a ton of the time. So there's a chance that if you're watching this right now, you may think this looks a little bit fishy. Why are we check min raising top pair? What the heck is that doing? This doesn't make any sense. However, I'm going to say that I really like this play. I like the fact that we're check min raising because we should be doing this with a decent amount of bluffs. This is the kind of texture that the cutoff is going to be continuation betting a pretty large chunk of the time as a default, I would assume. He's opening from the cutoff, so I'm assuming his range is pretty wide, so he's going to fight pretty hard on this pot with a c-bet. Not really super shocked to see that. But I like that we're check min raising here because at least we're throwing some value hands into our check raising range so that our check raise range isn't just air and things like ace 10 and that sort of stuff. So I like that we're buffing it out with some value hands as well. So overall, I'd say this looks pretty good. And because of that, I'm not really super shocked that we ended up getting some extra action. Now, at this point in the game, I'm really not going to be folding. There are very few hands that the cutoff can have that are that strong. Yes, he can have aces. Yes, he can have ace-king. Yes, he can have a few combos of sets. But beyond that, there's really not much power stuff in his range. And another thing we heavily have to consider is that our play probably looks a little bit weird, looks a little bit silly, and because of that, we're probably going to induce this. Again, we should have bluffs at our check raising range, so because of that, we can't be shocked if we induce some extra bluffs when he thinks, hey, your range is probably pretty airy, so I'm just going to fight back and 3-bet to 14,000 and see what it does. So at this point in the hand, it's Hero's response to this 3-bet that is either going to make me love this play or hate this play. And it could definitely change based upon who you think the cutoff is and what kind of mistakes you think they're likely to make. So let's talk about what Hero did. First of all, Hero decided to call. My issue with calling is that when we do call 35 in the middle, 38 effective back, which essentially sends a message to anyone that, hey, we're committed to this pot. We're not going anywhere at this point. You shove at any point, we're getting at least 2-1, so we're going to snap off with top pair. And honestly, if we're going to call here with something like pocket nines, we're not doing so we can fold later. We're just doing so to try to induce. So if that's the case, then I like this call if we think that the cutoff can't really think like that, and the cutoff is still likely to shell off on the next street trying to get us to fold something like 4s or 4-3 or something not so super strong. If that's the case, and you think that he's not going to understand that your call means you're committed, and you think he's still going to make his barrel off mistakes, then by all means you can call this and go from there. My issue is if you're playing against a really competent opponent, I think that by calling here, you're not really repping a bluff. You're repping really only hands that are pretty much value and pretty much never folding. And that's a really big problem when you're playing against someone who's competent and can hand read it all. So your other options are to call here, jam turn, because you could do that with a bluff, or to go for a 4-bet here on the flop. And I actually really like that, and it would just be a min 4-bet. Again, anything to possibly induce. If he folds, fine. I still pick up a decent amount uncontested. If he shoves, I'm obviously never folding, because again, I already thought about that when I checked min-raised in the first place. So again, it just kind of depends on what kind of assumptions you're making on your opponent and what kind of thought process he has. Again, if he's going to view you as committed, you're probably not inducing any extra bluffs at this point, and you're just going to give him 2 free cards to actualize his equity. Whereas, you could go for a 4-bet, again, still rep bluffs, and maybe induce some extra mistakes from there. But as played, hero does decide to call, turn comes a 4, hero checks, induces the bet, hero goes for the check shove, and I like everything as played. Again, we knew that we were automatically committing on turn cards. It was just how were we going to end up committing? Was it going to be here? Was it going to be on the river? But either way, I like the fact that we're doing this, no questions asked. We end up getting snapped off and unfortunately run into Jack 5. So I'm not sure if Hero had this information prior to, but if he did and knew that he could get a bet from something like Jack 5 on the turn, then I really, really like his flat of the 3-bet on the flop. If he wasn't sure about that, or he thought that the cutoff was a different thinking type opponent, then again, I more prefer the 4-bet on the flop. And again, it would just be a min 4-bet and go from there. But overall, I like Hero's play. I like pre-flop, I like the flop, I really like the check min-raise. Again, we should be doing that for bluffs a lot of the time, which also means we need to start doing it with some value hands so that our range doesn't become totally bluff-weighted. And then in this situation, again, the main inflection point is how are we going to respond to that 3-bet. I already gave you kind of what goes into it and when you would adjust your play. But overall, assuming that Hero really thought that Jack 5 was going to be betting a lot of turns, then I really, really like this play, and I think Hero played this hand very, very well. So Liam, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker-related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. I'll leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these types of videos. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there, and happy grinding.